Hello?
Miss Lauren, how you doing this evening?
Hey, how's it going? I haven't heard from you in a while.
Well, it seems like it's been summertime. Everybody's kind of doing their own little thing, but I'm ready to get back in and dive into this whole podcasting thing, man. I've been kind of confused about what's going on.
Yeah.
Help me figure it out.
I mean, it seems like it was just so quiet there for that period of a few weeks, and there was nothing coming out. Nobody's talking about it, no videos, nothing. And then just in the last, I want to say 3 or 4 days, it's a resurgence of stuff coming out, and I don't know. My mind is blown right now. I just saw something that maybe there was a potential witness, and that's just got my mind blown wide open. So
you must have been watching Mind Shock. You watching Mind Shock?
Yes, I was.
Hey, we have to give that guy props, man. I mean, he's always on top of everything all the time.
And you know what I like about him is that he can play his own devil's advocate. I mean, he will throw things out there, theories, but he also is very, very quick to say, these are just theories. This doesn't mean I believe it. And so I think that's really awesome, because I feel the same way. Just because we talk about something or we say this is a possibility or I had this thought, it doesn't mean that we think that that's the case. So, he's awesome.
I went down a little wormhole this week with the TK, KAK, whatever you want to call it, reference. And, there was all kinds of things with that. I mean, that was the biggest data dump that, to me, seemed to have happened this year, 2022. And, there's still the MS group. We all know who that is. They're still saying that their inside people are talking about TK still. What's your thought on that?
Well, my thought is that, okay, those transcripts were leaked, and they're totally inadmissible in court. So if they were really trying to build a case against Keegan, and we can say his name because it's out there in the public eye. I mean, he's got 30 charges, If they were really trying to take him to court over his involvement in this homicide, they would have never allowed that. They would have filed an injunction. They would have put a gag order on it. Whatever they had to do, law enforcement would have never allowed that, quote, accidental leak to make it to the public. There's no way. They would have shut it down. I mean, and even if it did get leaked, like episode 1, because you remember they did it in like a series of episodes, like 3 different episodes, I think, the MS people did. And maybe they would have got the first one out before law enforcement was aware that they had the information, but there wouldn't have been a second and a third if they really thought they were going to try to use those transcripts in court. So I think we have to kind of be wary of what – there's significant information in it, but is it just to put pressure on Keegan? Or, they're obviously not trying to make a criminal case against him in the murder of Abby and Libby. That's my thoughts on it.
Well, it doesn't seem like it. And, of course, I don't know. Everybody has spent so many hours, everybody that's in this vertical, the whole Delphi murders vertical, and this is important. This is an important case because it hasn't been solved, and it's just, as a parent, as a human being, it's just something wrong with this thing continuing to go on. But as far as it goes, though, to me, I've watched those videos and listened to that along to the what little bit of vocal we have. And I've been debating this all week, and my current vacillation, which is like I'm on the corner now, is that I just don't see that being an old guy, that this bridge guy, this video we have. But I could be wrong. I vacillate quite a bit. Where are you with that? Do you have any strong feelings?
I have some strong feelings, yes. But I'll throw out some of the things that I've heard as being proposed as theories. Maybe it's not even a guy at all on the bridge. Maybe the bridge guy is not even an actual person, but rather like what's the word? An amalgam of a composite, basically, of more than one person put together. An enigma, if you will.
Hey, let's stop for 1 second. For a second. On that amalgam, like I remember hearing that word in sociology. It was amalgamation. It was like there was 3 different phases of America. There was like this, nobody was connected. Then there was another word. And then there was amalgamation, where everything was all blended together. I just wanted to throw that in there. I'm gonna be quiet now and let you continue on. Sorry.
No, I mean, but what I was saying is, I think they also use the term to describe, like when you put 2 pictures together, you know, when they do like age progression or age regression, or like in the Twilight movies where they CGI'd Bella and Edward's baby, and it was whatever word you said, amalgam. I can't say that word, of the 2 people together. Yeah, so that's how I was using it. That's the context that I was saying. But my personal feelings are that, you know, you have to consider Occam's razor. And Occam's razor would tell us that the most logical or the most simple explanation is, in fact, the explanation. And that would be that KK and TK did this. I don't think that, though. I don't believe that. I think that they know who did. I think that the press release in the middle of the night or late at night, where it was Sergeant Pierce, and he's like, during the course of this investigation, we've uncovered an online persona by the name of Anthony Schott. The time that they put that out late at night like that, everybody in jail is watching the news. They're sitting around the little tables in their day room. They got the news on, and it put pressure on Keegan because, you know, law enforcement can't go in there and threaten him or beat him up or whatever to get answers out of him. But they can put information out there in the form of a press release to have his fellow inmates put pressure on him. And I don't know if you noticed, but in the headline news, interview with Barbara McDonald, where he's on the phone in the jail talking to her, his face was bruised up. So, that being said, I think maybe he knows a lot more than what he's saying. He's protecting someone, and law enforcement pulled out all the stops. I don't know.
That's interesting because, you know, I was in a discussion on that MS discussion board the other day, and it doesn't. I get there's been a lot of people say that it was multiple people involved, and I always assumed that everybody accumulated there on that one day, and it all went down. But, you know, one of the theories that if you listen to what a lot of that particular line of thought looks at, the murder sheet and what they've reported, is that you have Keegan, whatever his name is, his dad, was kind of controlling on him, and he would live vicariously through other people. He has this mentality of where he like lives through like race car drivers or people that do other things, and that, you know, there is this propensity through Keegan. There's a dark, you know, desire thing that goes on, and that he uses that to manipulate other people to do things, whether it be his own son, whether it be his stepchildren, or whether it be other people that he's gathered around him. You know, this guy, like, you know, if you're like a guy that makes, he bragged about it, I saw in a couple of interviews, like $93,000 or whatever per year, which, you know, you could brag about that maybe, you know, but in certain areas you may find that as being very fascinating. This guy always has money, he can always buy the beer, whatever else. And of course, I could see where people go with that line of thought. I'm not saying that it's true. I mean, I've had 2 or 3 POIs, but then I go, yeah, that's wrong, and I want it to be, but I can never make it happen, you know. But I could see where this guy could use manipulation for other people to get other people to do things, and I don't know if he intended for it to go down like it was. Even, let's just say that angle is even true. I don't know that he intended for to go down like it did, but. And then the next minute, I'll vacillate back to it's just some guy there, and something happened, and maybe he'd been on meth for 2 or 3 days, and these girls did something to offend him, and he went out there. But springboarding back to an initial question I asked you, and I gave you a lot of latitude with it, and I gave myself a lot of latitude with it as well. But what age do you see that guy being? I mean, I see it as being like somebody between 28 and 35. That's my opinion. What do you see? I mean, what do you see whenever you see that guy?
I don't see a damn thing when I see him. I can't see a distinguishable feature in that face anywhere. But I will tell you this. I had tossed around this idea. You remember in the transcripts where the police officer who was interrogating Kagan said that Livy was enamored with him, and like that they had exchanged "I love yous," and the cop was like, well, or Kagan was like, well, I was just saying that to get her to do what I wanted, which was to send me the pictures. I actually toyed with the idea that maybe PK, because he said he was communicating with 2 different people. So 2 different people were communicating through Keegan's account. So maybe Tony was thinking like, oh, okay, this is a mark for me. Like I can pretend to be him, and I can lure these girls out here or whatever. But maybe Keegan did love her, like, or he thought he did. You know what I'm saying? And like maybe there really was some actual like feelings involved there, because Keegan seems like the type who is very immature, and he seems like very insecure as well. And I do agree that his father has probably been abusive and manipulative and controlling. And I just wonder if Keegan had actually developed like feelings for her, or even if that's not the case, if he knew what his dad was capable of and what he would do. And he went out to the bridge to try to stop it. And then, maybe he couldn't.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. I know that you've probably been paying attention to the news this week. On July the 4th, Monday, there was a mass shooting in, what's it called, Highland Park? And have you listened to the psychological profile of the guy that has confessed to it? Have you listened to any of that? I don't know if you have or not. We haven't spoken about it.
No, I have not. I did hear about the shooting, but no, I have not been keeping up with the media on that.
Well, that's okay. Of course, a lot of the things that you kind of described there was like, I just picked it up on one. It was an in-depth analysis. Like I had to drive this morning about 20 minutes. Anyway, it was talking about, this person that did all that. He did not blend in with people. He couldn't get social acceptance through normal avenues, sports or funny or attractiveness or fast or nothing. I mean, he wasn't able to blend in. But of course, again, that goes to the point where you're trying to understand not really the victim, but the perpetrator. And of course, with this case, we see a lot of law enforcement focusing on Bridge Guy. They focus on him being an old person. Now he's a young person, and now he's had some non-secular or stuff he left there. I mean, I'm trying to figure out him. Where you're at now. I'm not committing this to the past or the future or anything else, but on today, July the 8th, 2022, where are you at with the psychology or the behavioral here and now, or where you at with Bridge Guy?
Well, I'll just put it this way so that I don't get crucified. I'm with TCD. I'm with True Crime Design. That's where I'm at personally. But now, that being said, what if Kagan had made plans, or Kagan found out through Snapchat with the mapping and all that where you could see your friends' locations, that Libby was at the bridge, and maybe, they had made plans to meet, because I think that was said in the transcript. And but maybe she actually made plans with another boy, maybe closer to her age or something, and better looking than Kagan and all of that. And maybe Kagan was like, oh, well, she said that she loves me, so maybe she'll accept me for who I am. So, you know, he goes out to the bridge because he knows she's there, but she's already, like, hanging out with another boy or something. And what if he just freaked out and, like, went into a jealous rage? That could have, you know, that could be something. I don't know. I mean, I've never really had what you call a person of interest because there's just so many people that fit the bill, and I don't want to commit to that. You know, I don't want to commit to a person of interest. All people are people of interest to me in this case. Let's just put it that way.
You threw out a podcast there, and I've watched that channel. So what was the name of it? You just mentioned.
True Crime Design.
Okay, so, and that's the, and like, but now that channel is getting attacked by one particular wing of the group because, you know, as I understand it, now, like, the number one group of people that gets looked at in any crime is the people closest to the person that got crimed against, for lack of a better word. Now that's hard for a lot of people to swallow, and of course, I don't think that anybody ever wants to publicly crucify anybody in anyone's family, but I mean, you should still look at them. You know, as always with most cases, like 43% of cases are that close.
Well, I think that the problem is, or the reason that particular person has become under so much scrutiny, the person that, you know, True Crime Design is talking about right now, is just because of their own inconsistencies, their own narcissistic personality tendencies. The way that any interviews that person's given, it's all about them. They ask this person to talk about the girls, and this person instead talks about themselves the whole time, and you know, it's very disconcerting. And then I've seen an interview that this person did with a law enforcement officer, and the law enforcement officer's body language, micro expressions, and nonverbal cues to me indicated that he absolutely held this person in contempt. Like, he spoke to this person in a manner, or maybe more the facial expressions are just with absolute disgust and contempt. And I think that that's very telling. So you can't deny facts, and they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, and the picture of that is that this man can't stand that person. So
well, I know which interview you're talking about, and I've actually seen a lot of his videos. And, of course, he does have some tics, but I've never seen his tics as prevalent as in the interview you're talking about. Now, is that because he didn't take his medicine that day? Is it because of this or that? I mean, I can't say that. I mean, but again, if you look at most cases ever out there, it's like people that are close to someone. And like I said, you know, we have no idea where law enforcement is on all this, and it could be. You know, there's a lot of things that law enforcement has said that the channel that you mentioned and Mind Shop. This guy, you know, he talks about things. He talks about such a wide variety of things, you can't really pin him down on any particular thing. Like if this particular channel, if you and I or you and Donald were talking about, any of us would talk about a lot of things, you'd be like, oh my God, you know, they were blah, blah, blah. But if you spread enough bullshit in between all the things you say, then, you know, you could even it out. But I mean, in any court case ever, you have to look at the people closest to the people that were harmed. Because those are the people that know your business. If someone comes and steals a particular gun from your house, it's because they knew that particular gun was there. They would never have known it was there had it not been for some kind of an inside source. So, you know, like if there's any kind of planning involved, then there has to be some kind of an inside source, whether it be an Anthony Shots account, something related to Snapchat, something related to a family that knew where they were at, or other things. there would have to be some kind of a reason why, unless, of course, it was just a random thing. And of course, if it were just a random thing, why would a person be so prepared? All of us that ever looked at this bridge guy video and all of those 48 frames in there, you'll know that there's things under this guy's jacket. It's not just, you know, things you could carry out to the park on like Monday morning. There are things there. There's a kit. There's something going on there. This guy has a lot of stuff he's carrying around. This case is carrying around a lot of baggage, like some things you spoke about just then. And I hear it every day, and there's such a wide variety of things that are spoken about this case because it's so big and so small town and so not solved. Why? All right, tell me why. You live right there. You're like within just like a circle, a small circle. Where this is at? Why is this case not solved yet? Why don't we know? Why can't I watch this on Forensic Files?
Well, okay, so I've often spoke of the fact that I believe that law enforcement, when they're giving their pressers, that they're speaking to an individual, maybe specifically an individual who has given somebody an alibi, you know, that they're appealing to that person to come forward with what they know, because Carter constantly is saying, like, one piece of the puzzle is missing, we're one tip away, etc. And it brings me to the questioning alliances and loyalty. And, you know, if it was just a bunch of meth heads who were doing meth together and decided to do this thing, you mean to tell me after 5 years, if there's 20 people involved, that one of those crackheads hasn't turned on the other? I don't believe it, because I think that the only relationships where there's going to exist a type of loyalty to not speak with $300 and some thousand on the line as a reward, and to not speak with, you know, all the pressure from law enforcement and all of that stuff, would be loyalty between family members. So whether it's, you know, the family of the victims, whether it's family members TK and KK, whether it's other, you know, father and son or whomever, I do think that that's significant. And I think that because of that, it might not be solved. Maybe there was some bumbling of the evidence in the beginning, some contamination at the crime scene or something, where the DNA is not usable, or there's not enough of it, or maybe a search wasn't handled properly, and so that evidence is inadmissible. One thing I will say about law enforcement is I feel like they're waiting until they know they can secure and maintain a conviction. They don't want to just jump the gun. Everyone's putting pressure on law enforcement to make an arrest. Well, you can make an arrest all you want, but then getting it to actually stick and to not have a mistrial declared or to be lost on appeal or whatever, like that kind of stuff, that's different. That's a different story. I mean, maybe they know who he is, and maybe they have a bunch of circumstantial shit that they can go pick them up on. But what good is that going to do?
Let me ask
Carter
you this.
says. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this. Okay, so you mentioned that Bridge Guy is the very top of this program. You're like, well, you know, it didn't necessarily have to be the guy that was walking across the bridge whenever we looked at it, or the implication is a little bit bigger that a female may have been involved. And one that I always hear brandished around with this case is tied up with, I believe, Libby's father, and her initials are AG. What? I mean, is that the female you were referring to, or what were you referring to? What do you know about AG? And of course, her first name is Ashley.
Well, yeah, I know who you're talking about, but that's what I'm saying is, who is she protecting? Does she have a family member? I mean, if she was involved, does she have a family member, a brother, a father, a son, who she would remain loyal to for this long? Because it's my understanding that as soon as they got her in custody for the Nicole Bowen murder, she sang like a canary, okay? So clearly, she's not one of these diehard, oh, I'm never going to talk to the police. I'm never going to tell the police anything. I don't cooperate with law enforcement. Obviously, she's going to say whatever she has to say and tell whatever she has to tell. So again, it goes back to in what relationships does there exist the level of loyalty required to keep all of this inside and not speak on what you know when there's $325,000 on the line and a really freaking long time in prison.
Well, that's interesting. It really is. Now, so with that, though, do you think that the retribution that people talk about in the podcast that we hear, if we listen to all of the channels that are involved with Delphi murders, people suggest that maybe someone in one of the girls' families said, hey, this person, to get myself out of trouble, they ratted other people out. Do you think that would be something that would even occur here? I mean, do you think that would be, is that bad enough to go get people and kill little girls on a bridge? Is that a feasibility or no? What do you think?
Yes, but not. It's not feasible to me, in my opinion. It's feasible that could have been retribution, but then the subsequent 5 years of silence and someone not coming forward, that is not feasible to me. There's not enough loyalty between, I don't know how else I can say this, but Ashley Garth and whomever, she may have participated in it with, unless they are, blood relatives, she wouldn't have kept her mouth shut for this long. One thing I have learned from living in Indiana and working in places where meth use is rampant is they love to just tell on people for no reason. They don't even have to be in trouble trying to get themselves out of trouble. They just like to tell people's business. So I have absolutely no belief that it's just some retribution, bunch of meth tweakers. I think it's
so that takes out Garrett Kurtz.
Yeah,
that
absolutely. They hate each other. Ashley Garth and Garrett Kurtz hate each other. She's not keeping her mouth shut for him. There's no way.
Okay, so now let's explore around, because there's a bunch of conspiracy theories. We've been talking about this for months. I mean, we could. The thing of it is that you're so well read, you could talk about any one of them, and I could believe that you believe it, and then later you're like, no, I don't really believe that, because you've never really told me who your POI is, and I would never expect you to. But you can explain every one of these, though, because you studied them. And I know you have one you like. I'm not going to ask that out of you tonight. Exactly. Maybe later. But now let's talk about. We talked about that. The Garrett Kurtz thing. Everybody wants to blame him for it. Everybody wants to blame Tony Klein for, or maybe somebody associated with him. We talked about those two. What? And we talked about family. And we're going to come back to that one, because we got to figure out a way to talk about it, because it's, in most cases, I think it's 43% of cases, something is related to family. But not always. There's random shit that shows up. You and I both know that. Let's come back to that one. Let's throw it out there as an option. But what other kind of options are there? Stranger danger? What else besides Kurtz and the Kokomo and all this, what are they? I don't even know what Kokomo is. Is that different than Kurtz, or is that the same thing as Kurtz?
I believe the Kokomo thing is that Garrett Kurtz was part of this, quote, Kokomo crew. But let me tell you, I've lived in Lafayette for pretty much all my life. I know several people from Kokomo, none of those people, but everyone's acting like this is like the Bloods and the Crips or the Mexican mafia or cartel. Like, the Kokomo crew is not a gang. They're just a bunch of people who do meth together. And then when they run out of meth, they go and do other illegal shit together to get more meth. Okay, so let's just, first of all, debunk that these aren't like mastermind, super intelligent criminals, carrying out these elaborate hits. All right. They're a bunch of idiots that after being up for 4 days probably can't even find their ass with both hands in a map. So I don't think they're pulling off, this very well orchestrated double homicide in broad daylight. Okay, can we just agree on that? I mean,
yeah,
but
I can agree with that.
But I have read up on all of the people, and the reason that the person that I'm currently looking at is who I'm looking at very strongly is because I can't disprove it. I have disproven, or I have been able to explain away the rest of them, and I can't with this person. And it just seems like the more that comes out and the more reading and stuff, the stronger the case becomes for that. So,
well, I revealed to you the very first time you and I ever spoke. I was like, "Well, this is my top 3," and I gave them to you. And my top one was a very. Go ahead.
I think one of them is you were definitely. That's who I think as well. So, in a part, he was half of it anyway.
And that's exactly what I want this conversation to continue to be, which is, because there's so much going on, and of course, I can argue both sides of every story because I've looked at all of them. I've been very passionate about both sides of it. I've been like going, yeah, that's got to be true. Then the next one will be like, that's bullshit. If I like learn one thing, but then you can vacillate. We don't know anything. We don't know as nearly as much as law enforcement knows. Okay, so we talked about the Kokomo connection. I mean, what would you think, just from what you experienced by going by there and by hearing people talk since then, before then, after then, help me understand. I've heard various numbers about how many people were out there that day. How popular was this place locally? Was it a popular place that truckers would stop by? I mean, help me understand this whole Monon High Bridge place in connection with that community.
I have never been out there and seen another person out there, if that helps. I've never, I haven't walked across the bridge and all that, but I've been out in that area in the trails, and never has there been a time when I've been there that I've seen another person. So this whole, there might have been 50 other kids there thing. Are there even 50 kids in Delphi? I mean, that's a joke, obviously, but I don't buy it. I don't believe that there were 50 people and nobody saw him or her. Maybe nobody saw the person because the person wasn't really there on the 13th. I mean, I have a very open mind, because you have to have an open mind. You cannot just decide who you think is the guilty party and then make the evidence fit that. You have to look at the evidence, and your ideas should be ever evolving. Like, I like to be a person who, when I'm presented with new information, I can say, you know what, I thought it may have been A, but I see now that that's not the case. It might be B. And I don't think that that's hypocritical or wishy-washy or going back and forth. I think that that's having an open mind and being reasonable. I wonder when this is solved, are we still going to be hearing from certain people who are so adamant about their POI that the cops have it all wrong? They got the wrong guy, etc. Just because people get an idea and they can't admit that maybe they were wrong.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. We're about to go into a new phase of law enforcement there. In big ways after the end of the year, I think. Because I think that maybe the governor terms out, like our governor down where I live at terms out. I think that probably that Doug Carter, D.C., is going to retire maybe the next year or so. And, of course, we know we have a new sheriff. And, that's going to change. That's going to change a lot of things. But I don't know how it's going to change things. What do you think?
Well, Carter said in his News Nation interview back on the anniversary in February that at that time he had 3 years and 11 months left before his retirement. So we still got a little ways with him. And let me be clear, I don't think Doug Carter's God or anything. You know, I think that he's given a script by an FBI profiler to read at his pressers because, well, that's been verified. You know, that's not just my opinion. Like, every single word that he says is pretty much written by someone else. I do believe that he is genuine in his, when he said that this is the totality of evil in his career. I believe that he's genuine. I'm a pretty good judge of character, and I can usually smell bullshit a mile away. And I'm not saying that I'm infallible, so I could be wrong. But Doug Carter does not strike me as the type who would be hindering or, you know, associating with any people who may be the source of corruption within the ranks of the police. I think that he is absolutely pissed.
I have a very important question for you.
Yeah.
Because you're right there in the middle of this. This is like, I know that like breaking you off right there is probably a very dumb thing to do. But the shack. Let's talk about the shack for a moment, because a lot of people have suggested that whenever Doug Carter brought up the shack, that he went off message. And there's a lot of connections with this case about Doug Carter and the shack, and you know, some of the family. What? I don't understand why we're talking about the shack. Why he talked about the shack? I mean, was that on message with the profilers? What do you think?
So, I think that you're correct that he did go off script there, because he is a man of faith. I mean, by all appearances anyway, by all outward appearances, he is a man of faith. And I think that maybe, you know, I just don't know about that, because I can see that it was, how he said it was a mention, or it was a book that talked about eternity and good and evil. And when he said he recently saw a movie called The Shack, and he said it talked about evil, and then he said there's also a book that talks so much about, I can't remember his exact words. I never knew when he said there's also a book, is he talking about The Shack or is he talking about another book? Because he doesn't say this was the movie based off of a book. He says there's a movie and there's also a book. It just seemed like a funny way to say it if he was talking about the same thing. So I think that maybe was off script, but I think it was directed at a specific person to let that person know, hey, I'm on to you. So.
Okay, so there's that guy. He is a, like I said, you said, a very spiritual man. And of course, I don't see him as being one of those guys that prays in public, except for by everything that he does. I suspect when he's around children, he lifts them up to what he would have. I know guys like that, and they're very spiritual. They're godly people. You know, they're different than like religious people, whatever that means. Okay, but those people like it right there. I know what you're talking about, because I read the exact same thing from that guy, and I see his talking about that, and I wonder where he came from on that. You know, I think it was big if he went off message there. I think it was pretty big. But I think that at the very minimum, he forced the hand of everybody involved in that speech of him talking about that. And I think they gave him some kind of latitude to talk about it. But I'm sure it's very restricted. I can't, you know, I've worked in PR for companies, and I know that there's a very strict message that you stick to. And that's what his job is. He's the guy that goes out there and talks about things. So everything he says, you need to pay attention to. Every single press conference, everything that guy says is huge. I listen to it all the time, you know, in regard to this case. What about you?
Well, I listen to the things he doesn't say, too. Like at the end of his News Nation interview, when he says, they're asking him, does he think this case will be solved? And he says, I think that we're going to have a successful outcome. In the end, I think we'll have a successful outcome for Abby, or maybe he says resolution, but for Abby, Libby, Anna, Mike, Becky, and the community. So in that instance, I was listening more to what he didn't say, if you see what I'm saying. Like, who did he not mention there? And I think deep. I think that was very, I think he did that on purpose because, you know, this person has been the, quote, face of the family, the face of the investigation. Like, they've done all these, you know, tours and public speaking and all this stuff and gotten all this attention for it. And I think at that point he was like, you know what, you're not getting any more attention or credit or praise for doing what you're doing because any family member would do that for their deceased family member. I think he was saying it's going to be a successful conclusion for them, but not for the person who he didn't mention. I don't think it was an accidental oversight. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention you. I just sat at your house and did an hour-long interview, but I forgot to mention you. So
I would challenge you to find that interview anywhere but on a particular podcast feed. There's nowhere else you can find that interview. I couldn't find it. How about you?
I haven't found it anywhere else, but I think that that person has probably not given permission for anyone else to use it. So it might be a copyright thing. Because, I mean, that podcaster is very closely associated, or has become closely associated with family. Like, he pretty much is considered the gospel source. The go-to for, quote, reliable information. So I don't know. I don't think that it does exist anywhere because I believe it was his interview to begin with. So,
but it's weird though that a state, the representative of a state police agency, the Indiana State Police, gave a interview with another person to him only, or that's the only place you can find it. Maybe you can find it. I've only looked on YouTube. I haven't looked on Google. I don't know that I've gone that deep with it. So, like, I have to stand corrected as of the moment. But, you know, I think we should further investigate exactly where that interview came from. I mean, you know, I'm not trying to say that there's anything with it or without it, but, I mean, it's kind of weird if it's only on one place, you know.
Well, and that podcaster looked very favorably on the person in the interview, that family member. So if she was the one who, and you know what, I just threw out a she, and I don't even care because I'm sure everyone's figured out by now what I'm talking about. If it's her interview, she could have given the rights to it to him, you know, and not anyone else. So maybe that's, you know, the only person that she gave it to. Or maybe she's like reported other accounts to have it taken down and his just hasn't gotten taken down. I mean, her debunking video disappeared too. So her rumor debunking video. So, you know, it's now obvious that Doug Carter's sitting at her. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. You go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that it's obvious Doug Carter's sitting in her apartment with her and they're speaking. So as far as the validity of it or the authenticity of it, I mean, it's definitely a real interview. So I never really looked into it that deep as to trying to find it elsewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm curious about where it is at because it sure does look like an apartment. It doesn't look like like a radio station or anything like that. Sure. No. Okay.
I believe it was her apartment because her cat, you could see it in a couple instances where he looks down at the ground, and she had mentioned somewhere else that she had a cat, and he's talking about the cat like rubbing up against his leg or something. So, I mean, I can't say for sure, and I'm not a detective, but that would be my guess.
All right. So, I think there's, we've talked about, like, not a lot of people, you've been in the trail systems, you've not crossed the bridge, you have no desire to, probably never will. But now, I mean, someone just hanging out there, we know there's some CSAM stuff in that area that maybe we didn't know about before. I mean, what is the feasibility of this being some strange and dangerous stuff to you, based upon what you know about the case?
No way. I don't think so. Not for a minute. I mean, if it was stranger danger, it was set up online by someone who had been talking to them for a long time and had built trust with them. I've never thought that it was someone who was not known to them. Now, it may have been, the catfish aspect that who they thought they were meeting is somebody they knew, but who actually showed up wasn't that person. But I don't know. I still think that it's just a lot of details to have to plan for and work out and everything. Like, you got to get really lucky to pull something like that off. And then the fact that, so you had Robert Ives in the Down the Hill podcast say that the crime scene had at least 3 specific signatures. And I know people were getting signature and staging kind of mixed up. But in the Ron Logan search warrant probable cause affidavit, it specifically says staged. So when a signature is something that someone does that goes above and beyond what's necessary to complete the crime. So, if they pose the body or whatever. And then staging is where they purposely do things to make the crime scene look like something other than what it was, to mislead law enforcement. So the non-secular thing, whether that was a signature or whether that was staging, I think that that's kind of up in the air now, thanks to that probable cause affidavit. It could have been staging rather than signature. Someone had said, I noticed in a comment on your channel that Robert Ives never said that there were signatures. And I think it was in the first 3 minutes of maybe episode 4 of Down the Hill podcast. I'd have to go back and look, but it was 4 or 5 where they talked to Robert Ives. Within the first 5 minutes, he said that, yes, there were 3 distinct signatures. So I'll just throw that out there. But if the bodies were staged, then the non-secular thing could have been something done to misdirect police, to make it look like, it was the Satanists out in the woods, and to throw them off the trail of who really did it. I don't know. It's just something to keep in mind.
Well, I wonder about this staging thing, and I also wonder about, a lot of references made to video equipment in the Ron Logan affidavit signed by this very weird third person speaking, PI agent. But, there's 2 things right there that you and I have spoken about. One, the video equipment. They asked for very specific things. They acted as if in that affidavit, whatever her name is, trooper or FBI agent, about very specific recording equipment. And then whoever this person is that was providing the information contained in this affidavit also referred to herself in first person and third person, and there's some really weird stuff going on with that thing. I don't even know if it was a real affidavit. It's never been verified by the ISP or FBI or anybody, or what do you think?
Well, the only entity that has said that they verified the authenticity of it was the news channel that reported on it after they obtained it from the murder sheet. So, that being said, yes, I did find it strange in the introduction when this supposed Nicole Robertson said, Nicole Robertson, and I can't remember if she said, do hereby swear and affirm, but that's usually what they're supposed to say in an affidavit, because an affidavit is a sworn statement. So she says, I, Nicole Robertson, and then she says, special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And then the next line is, Nicole Robertson has worked for the FBI for however many years, and prior to that was a police officer at whatever, somewhere in Illinois. So why are you switching back and forth between first and third person? That's very suspect to me. If I were pulling a bio of an FBI agent named Nicole Robertson, and I was copying and pasting that into a document to make it look like Nicole Robertson had applied for a search warrant, and I just accidentally overlooked changing that little detail, I don't know. It's suspicious. So the devil's in the details, And
what
also,
about the recording?
Here's another question about the search warrant is with all the videography equipment, the computer hard drive, all that, we've never once heard anything about Ron Logan having any connection to any of the CSAM, to any of, these cyber crimes. We've never heard anything except he had a probation violation for driving while suspended, several DUIs, and whoever was in this probable cause affidavit that they referred to that had been in a domestic partnership with him, supposedly he was abusive towards women. Now, even if that is true, which we have no proof of it, even if that is true, I'm not saying it's okay to hit your wife or to hit your girlfriend when you're drunk, but not everybody who hits their girlfriend when they're drunk, or sober for that matter, goes on to be a sadistic predator who later murders 2 children. Okay, that's a far jump. So I don't think that people are saying, oh, well, Ron Logan, he was abusive towards women. That means he did it. No, that doesn't mean that. I just think it's very suspicious because is Ron Logan a photographer? Was he running CSAM sites? Was he a tech wizard? Because to me, all of that stuff kind of sounds like something that they might put in a search warrant for someone's house who has been committing cybercrime, who is known to be trafficking in images of underage persons. So I don't know how you feel about that, but that was suspicious.
I have a theory about Ron Logan. I know a lot of guys like that. Either they come up with extra few dollars, got some property, didn't have to work a lot, had a leisurely lifestyle, or they got it through a marriage or from an uncle or something like that. And I don't know how he got his property there. But I'm going to tell you this. He seems like one of those guys that I know of as a stereotypical guy that probably thinks a whole lot more than he should. He's probably never had a job. He rides around a lot, probably get into a lot of mischief. But I don't say he didn't kill the girls, but I'm going to tell you that bridge guy going across that bridge to me that's not who it is. To me, people say old guy, but I don't see an old guy there. I keep saying this. This guy is like 28. This person is 28 to 35 years old. To me.
Well, Ron Logan, my theory on him is that it was supposed to look like it was him. I think that the reason that, and I'll say this out loud, and I mean, I could be wrong, somebody prove me wrong. I think that he found the girls' bodies. I think that that's why the searchers didn't find them on the 13th. I think that's why the drone did not pick up a heat signature. I think that he had either a suspicion that something happened on his property, or he went to one of his barns, for whatever reason, and discovered them. Or maybe he found them out in the open somewhere, and maybe he moved them into one of his barns because he knew that they would try to pin it on him. And then he waited until most of the searchers had left and they got done searching in his area. and then he either maybe on an ATV or whatever, moved their bodies. I think he tried to move them off of his property, but maybe he was just, a couple feet short or something. And that's why he tried to get the alibi in advance.
Let me add some credence to what you're talking about, because the latest couple of days here, I've been looking at the Delphi murders. There's been a big explanation of where the bodies were found, being on the water or in the water. So maybe he did throw them off in the water. Why did they not drift very far? I'm just trying to say that that's way too out for me. Okay, let me back that up. But not everybody would think that, though. Logically speaking, you think, if you threw the bodies in the night before, or maybe if they were at the very edge, maybe they wouldn't go. You're trying to figure this out logically, because we're all adults. We're trying to figure this thing out. There's scarce information. There's a lot of speculation, and it's easy to get off into the weeds on this thing. I get that, and really people should, because there's no accountability right now. There's no one solving this case. We don't have any information. We don't know how these girls died. We don't know what condition they were left in. It's been a long time. We need to figure out what's going on here. If there's something more that we could help with, I feel like the public could help. If there's something specific you need, let us know. We will publicize it. Everybody in the world will publicize it. We'll find whatever it is that you need to find. But we need more information. We've got a fuzzy picture. We've got a lot of people that are angry or that are upset with all this. I'm upset with it. Doug Carter said some nights he can't sleep. Well, sometimes I wake up as a human being. I'm like, what the fuck's going on, man? Why is this not solved? I don't get it. I go down these rabbit holes over and over and over again, and I understand there's like political stops to it. There's evidentiary stops to it, but why? A little small town in Delphi, Indiana, why do we not have this solved? What is stopping? What's lacking that you can see the police talking about or anybody talking about? What stands out to you as lacking?
Well, what stands out to me is that in his interview, when the interviewer asked Doug Carter, what can the public do to help? And he said, keep doing what you're doing. Well, the public is speculating. And he said, stop comparing side by sides. That's not helpful. Stop going out and physically doing your own investigation. But the public needs to keep doing what they're doing, because I think the public is able to say things that law enforcement can't say, okay? And we're not held to the same standards. We're not, Fox News isn't going to call us out for saying a theory. They might do that with the police. So, and as far as being off in the weeds, how many cases, I wonder, how many murders have been solved from the weeds? Because if you don't think outside the box, well, you're just doing everything that your first bit of evidence, or not even evidence, but if they went with their gut instinct on everything, or they said, okay, it was a stranger, we saw a hitchhiker, okay, yep, that must be it, let's go look for a hitchhiker and arrest him. You got to kind of get off in the weeds, or you can't maybe think of possibilities. I think it's good to talk about things. I think it's good for people to discuss them, because you can bounce ideas off of each other. And if you're getting a little crazy or whatever, you can let somebody know, like, hey, yeah, but I don't think that that's true, because I saw this that is contrary to what you're saying. So I don't know. As far as getting off in the weeds goes, yeah, I spend a lot of time there. But I think that if we didn't, we would still just be saying that it was some random homeless guy, that the case wouldn't have evolved the way it's evolved. So, that being said, it's not solved because they're missing the piece of the puzzle that they need, which is the person. They need somebody to come forward with what they know. And I think that maybe at this point, they do know who it is, and they do have the evidence, and they're probably watching. They've probably had things come to light because Carter's attitude and demeanor and the way he's almost giddy like a little kid, you know, the day before Christmas. Like, he knows that they're close. And the way he says, the difference from then and today is that we know a lot about you. And sleep well, because today could be the day. So.
Well, we don't want to taunt the killer, but we would definitely, killer, murderer, but we would definitely recommend that he turn himself in and do it, and do it in grand style, you know. You know, do it. You know, do your non-secular thing, man, you know. Bring it up. But kneel down. Confess your sins, or whatever you got to do. You know, this would be big. You know, whatever kind of thing you sought with this, you know, it's there for you. But we need to know who you are. But now, go listen to Doug Carter. He's got things to say to you. Hey, I'm gonna let you finish it out. Say good night for us.
All right. Well, I know we kind of jumped all over the place a little bit tonight, and I'm sure I'm going to hear about all of my stuff in the comments. So, and I just want everyone, that's fine. I like feedback, any kind of feedback. And if you can prove me wrong, prove me wrong. Because I would hope to God that it's not what I think it is. Because I just can't imagine. But if you are the person that has information that law enforcement is looking for, or you have something that you think is important, they have specifically said you do not have to have all of the information to give information. So just know that you may not ever, the killer may not ever be caught, and you may never have earthly consequences. But if you don't come forward, and you'll have unearthly consequences. There will be no freedom for you. You will be living in hell for the rest of your life right here on this earth with what you know. And you need to bring that forward and get it off your chest.
Lauren.
Yep.
Great conversation. I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much.
All right. Okay. Bye-bye.